The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a phenomenal game, easily giving the player hundreds of hours of playtime with what seems like countless things to do. The idea of getting DLC on top of the original game is a bit overwhelming for some. However, if you're like me and dread going 5 years between each home console Zelda game, DLC sounds like the perfect thing to hold us over until the next game. Especially with the Nintendo Switch being so new and not having a huge selection of games to choose from. The DLC that Nintendo has announced in DLC Pack 1, 2, and the bonus items are great, considering that they could have just moved on to work on another game and not bothered with any DLC at all. But what would the perfect DLC for Breath of the Wild be? I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, if you're as big of a fan of Zelda or Nintendo as I am, I recommend downloading the Nintendo Switch Amino. If you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, or have joined my Discord group, you've probably heard me talk about Zelda Amino before. While I always recommend Zelda Amino, today I want to give a mention to Switch Amino. It is a community-driven app created by fans for fans. Think of it as Facebook or Twitter, but specifically designed with Nintendo fans in mind. You can chat with myself or other Nintendo fans to get honest opinions or reviews on games, set up polls to decide which games you should buy next, and several other things. Personally, I like how easy it is to keep up with recent Nintendo news on the app, as it's a big part of what my channel actually does. So give it a try for free by following the links in the description and the top pinned comment below, and come chat with myself and other Nintendo fans and YouTubers. Now, back to the Breath of the Wild DLC. Nintendo has been a bit vague on what to expect from the winter DLC. We know we're getting a few new amiibo, a new dungeon, a new chapter or story, but we have no real idea on what the dungeon or story is going to be about. Is it going to be another divine beast? Is it going to be a traditional themed temple? Or is it going to be a Master Quest type remix of the current dungeons? Luckily, we do know what to expect from the upcoming summer DLC. A few new masks, a few sets of armor, a hard mode, and Trial of the Sword, which unlocks the full power of the Master Sword. Again, while the DLC is great, it isn't perfect. So, I've came up with 3 separate concepts of what would make new perfect DLC. The biggest thing missing from Breath of the Wild is a lack of variety. We see the same enemies everywhere, and the shrines and dungeons all seem to kind of go together. This could all be solved in a similar 2-pack DLC set to what we're getting now. Instead of giving us hard mode, new masks, armor, and the Trial of the Sword, we could get a monster or enemy pack that puts a much larger variety of enemies in the game. We could receive common enemies, I'm thinking P-hats. Just imagine jumping and gliding off of the top of a large mountain, while having a P-hat chase after you. There could be wall masters, Deku scrubs, even like-likes, which could steal certain items or armor you have equipped, unless you are able to kill them quickly enough and get it back. For overworld mini-bosses or the harder enemies similar to the Lynels, Guardians, and Hinoxes, we could get River Zoras that dislike Hylians, similar to the elderly Zora we see in Zora's Domain, who seem to be borderline racist. But instead of just whining and complaining, they actually attack us, with the only water enemy that stands out being an Octorok and the Lizalfos. Having an enemy that could chase after you in the water could completely change how you explore in the game. The most wanted enemy that I think fans would want would be Darknuts. In fact, if done correctly, Darknuts could be even more aggressive than Lynels. Instead of shooting arrows at you or charging after you, they could just walk slowly toward you, giving an intimidating presence to them. Similar to when you're watching a scary movie and you see one of the protagonists running away while Jason just walks ever so slightly towards them, and somehow always manages to catch them. Darknuts could have weapons strong enough to knock a shield out of your hand, similar to what we can do with heavy weapons when attacking an enemy. The closer they get to dying, the more armor you knock off of them, and the faster and more aggressive they become, similar to their appearance in other Zelda games. The second DLC pack could bring in the dungeons. In a similar way that placing the Sheikah Slate on the Great Plateau at the beginning of the game made the Sheikah Towers and shrines rise up out of the ground, it would be interesting if an NPC gave you a hint at another pedestal that magically appeared, and when the Sheikah Slate is placed on it, another earthquake happens. This time, instead of towers and shrines rising up, the ground would break in different areas, showing temples rise up. A fire temple at the very top of Death Mountain? It would be epic seeing it rise out of the lava inside the volcano. Ice and snow could fall from the top of one of the mountains, revealing an ice temple. A water temple could rise up in Lake Hylia, or in one of the game's many giant lakes. A spirit temple, or even better, the ruins of the Arbiter's grounds, could rise up from the sand in Gerudo Desert. A forest temple could appear somewhere close to Korok Forest, or the southern forest on the map. A shadow temple could rise up from... actually, I'm not really sure where it could come from. Kakariko Village, I suppose. But what I would really love to see is something being done with the Temple of Time. Similar to Twilight Princess, where it's in ruins. Have the goddess statue or another room open up so we can see the entrance to another dungeon. If you have any ideas for another way to find these temples, or where their locations could potentially be, comment below and share it with everyone. After all, this is all hypothetical anyways. A second idea for DLC would be a return to Termina. Okay, I know. Some of you are probably already thinking, but Termina wasn't real, or whatever. I have a video up for you to watch. It uses interviews and quotes from Aonuma, Miyamoto, and others who say that yes, Termina is a real physical location located close to Hyrule, not a dream world, which Hyrule Historia wrongly says. After all, it also says many other things that can be looked at as wrong, like Nintendo already retconning the timeline that is found in that book. Also, if Termina was created when the Skull Kid put on Majora's Mask, and Termina vanishes when he and Link left, the cutscene you find before entering the swamp wouldn't exist. The one showing Skull Kid long before he finds Majora's Mask, and he is doing cartwheels and playing with the fairies in Termina Field. So just right there, the game itself disproves Hyrule Historia. And quotes from Aonuma, the creator of the game, also disproves this. And again, it wouldn't be the first time that Hyrule Historia has been wrong about something. Maybe you don't remember the flood of dozens and dozens of videos that came out where people were correcting mistakes found inside the book. Anyways, seeing Link from Breath of the Wild return to Termina would be amazing. We've seen what Hyrule looks like from the time of Ocarina of Time to Breath of the Wild. So what would Termina look like from a similar length of time apart from Majora's Mask to Breath of the Wild's DLC? And expanded upon to be of a similar size to that of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. Imagine seeing Clocktown with NPC scheduled times on a scale that lasts a full week instead of just 3 days, or a system that actually takes advantage of the added processing power that the Switch has over the Nintendo 64. How would Termina have changed in this time? And would any of the people remember the legend of a boy in green who came and saved everyone from a falling moon? Similar to the legend of the hero defeating Ganon time and time again in Hyrule. The third and final way the game could have perfect DLC would be to allow us to go to the Dark World. Just imagine this. At the end of Breath of the Wild, Link and Zelda return to the castle with the residents of Hyrule. The Gorons, the Zora, the Gerudo, everyone. Similar to the end cutscene in Ocarina of Time showing everyone partying at Lonmon Ranch, everyone in Breath of the Wild is gathered outside the castle to begin to restore Hyrule to its former glory. Or it could just show everyone in different areas restoring certain locations. Restoring the castle, restoring the Temple of Time, even the Arbiter's grounds, and so on. Then as Link and Zelda are on top of a hill or at the top of the castle, looking off into the distance of the sunset, a dark purple or red tint comes across the sky, similar to the blood moon. But as the light touches the ground, it begins to change. The flat areas, mountains, lakes, everything begins to change shape. Link and Zelda see this and understand something has went wrong. For unknown reasons, after the death of Ganon, a new evil is slowly taking over Hyrule, with Ganon giving up his reincarnation becoming Calamity Ganon, and then being killed once and for all, ending Demise's curse. Demise has somehow returned after thousands of years, and is turning Hyrule into a version of the Dark World, just as the Spirit Realm was turned into the Dark World in A Link to the Past, and had a lot of similarities to the original Hyrule. The overall size and locations were the same, but each area looked different but somehow similar. The same has just happened to Hyrule and Breath of the Wild. This could either be a return of Demise or an entirely new threat. Perhaps with Ganon finally dead, the true leader of the Yiga clan has come to take over Hyrule. Knowing he didn't possess the Master Sword, he wouldn't be able to kill Ganon, but now that Ganon is gone, he can try to conquer Hyrule before everyone has a chance to come together, live in peace, and begin to rebuild. What's up everybody, Game Over Jesse here, and if you enjoyed this video and are into awesome nerdy geeky content like we are, consider subscribing to Geek Fuel, a monthly subscription box that is guaranteed to have over $50 worth of great stuff in every box. You'll receive an exclusive shirt, games, collectibles, and other geek-related greatness. Use the link geekfuel.com/GameOverJesse to not only get $3 off of your subscription, but to help out our channel as well, which means more time to work on more videos for you guys. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and welcome to the End Slate. If you're a fan of these videos, please subscribe and comment below to let me know your thoughts. If you would like to support this channel, please consider supporting on Patreon, where you can watch videos like this early, and help me create longer videos like the top 10 best and worst of Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, and the top 5 official Zelda games that have either been cancelled or just went unreleased. Finally, a huge thank you to this month's supporters: George Says Hi, Link Uses the Triforce, Transcendent Sacred Courage, Glenn Cassio, Prey Warrior, Victopedia, Rusty Caulfield, Robert W., Amanda Pina, Lunarium, Chris Gasparin, Harris Priest, Lovable Christie, Key of Time 15, Jerome Measure, Daryl Quinnen, Furzin 16, Kadron, Magic Tech Review, and The Itch Network.